Okay, so I've been working on this baby lock Elegante. Went through, serviced it. It was in pretty rough shape. And I got down to tensions. Now, sewing machines have two tensions. One tension is in the bobbin case, and the other one is on the upper section of the machine, has an upper tensioner. Generally speaking, most of the newer embroidery machines now, you can change your tension, or I'm sorry, the machine will automatically, when you select embroidery, it will change the tension of the tensioner. A lot of these computerized machines will automatically increase or decrease your tension depending on what mode you're in, regular sewing or embroidery. So that's usually I can adjust all the tensions through the service panel in the computer, and then you don't have to mess around with it. But on this machine, it's a little older. So the way it has to be is I calibrated the upper tensioner. There are three calibrations, two up in the upper tensioner and then a bobbin case tension calibration using a gauge that measures how many grams of pressure it takes to move the thread. So when this one came in, I had to do some embroidery patterns in order to see if, because the complaint was that the patterns were getting all jumbled up and color that should be here was over here or something like that. They just weren't lining up. But all that is working good. And I've got the embroidery unit serviced and all fixed up, so that is moving beautifully now, and everything was working well. But the tensions were terrible, and I knew I was going to have to do that. So if you turn this one over, on the back side, you can see that there was a dark color of a bobbin thread, and there was very little. That orange right there is the orange from the upper thread that was coming through to the bottom. And if you look carefully at the top of the design, gosh, on the edge here of this line of the satin stitch here, you can see the bobbin thread is really coming through really bad. It's getting pulled up, and all these loops here, you can see the little dots of dark thread coming up through. So all the thread was getting pulled up, and the bottom was not at all. You can see this satin stitch over here is just awful. You can see it should be a solid orange, but it wasn't. And the same goes for this design over here. All the bobbin thread was showing. There was a little bit of the other because that was a little different kind of a thread, so it wasn't quite as bad, but it's not so good. So after I got the machine serviced and all that, then I did a little testing. I started with this E here, and the first part of the E that stitched out was the bottom portion of the serif. And if you look at the back, you can see that you see mostly bobbin thread and very little top thread. That tells us that that it wasn't pulling down at the bottom enough. It really needed to pull up. And you can see, if you look carefully, the stitch just doesn't look good. There's some, right in there is bobbin thread coming up. So what you have to do is you have to loosen the upper tension so that it's pulling up to the top too hard. So you have to decrease the upper tension so that the bottom bobbin thread can pull it through. So you can do that. Again, on most sewing machines, the newer embroidery machines, they do that automatically, but this machine is older and it doesn't do that. So you have to go into the panel and adjust that. So on this one, when you're sewing, over here on the right, when you're in, let's see, when you're ready to sew, and you could actually do this on the fly on this machine while the machine is actually running, or when your pattern is underneath there, you can look over here, and there's this button here. It shows like a little tension icon and then a scissor icon, and you touch this and you get another screen, and the first thing you see in the middle here is tension. Now the default tension, it's got a black box with white letters. That's the default. So what you want to do is you want to decrease the tension here, and it'll turn to a black numbers in a white box, and decrease the tension on this machine. Because of how I calibrated the machine and the tensions for regular sewing, you're going to have to go down to about, I would say, 2.8, 2.6, 2.4, and that will give you a decent looking tension. This O here was pretty good, although I had that set at 3.0 over there, and you can still see that the bobbin thread was pulling on this side, which is over on this side of the O, and you could probably see it, that it was pulling a little bit too tight right there. But so I loosened it a little bit more, and this is the rest of the stitching on 2.8, and it's not great, but it actually looks pretty good. I'm not really seeing any bobbin thread coming up, but I didn't do it as low as 2.4. I think I was on like 2.8 or 2.6. So I would suggest going down to like 2.4 or something like that. However, that said, that is with polyester thread as the bobbin thread. If you used like maybe Aurifil or some kind of bottom line or some kind of bobbin thread that pulled differently than the thread that's in there, that's going to affect how that looks. And likewise, on the upper thread, I used this thread here. I'm not even sure what it is. Depending on what you're using for embroidery thread, that is going to go through the tensioners differently also. So the best thing to do is when you get your bobbin thread in there, you get your machine all threaded up, you're ready to do your pattern. Let's say you were going to do this. Just hoop up a sample of your fabric, put some stabilizer on there, and run like a design or part of a design. I always like to use the letters because that can really show you a lot, and it can give you that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 rule. And that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 rule is, at any given point here, you should be able to see 1/3 of the upper thread, and then in the middle, 1/3 of the bottom thread, and then in the bottom, 1/3 of the upper thread again. So that just shows you that the upper thread is pulling to the middle. And the same goes over here and over here, kind of here, but it bled over because it was a little bit wrong there. But you should be able to loosen it enough to where you can get it just right. And so when you do your test pattern to make sure it's going to work, make sure that your tensions are set good, then take this test pattern, test material out, then you can hoop up your project and know that your pattern's going to be in really good shape. It's going to look good on the top, so that's pretty much how it works with this particular embroidery machine, and a lot of other embroidery machines. That's how you can make sure that your tension is set right.